Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review. So, today we'll be continuing with my current horror franchise, which is Friday the 13th, and we are up to the crossover movie in the franchise, which is Freddy versus Jason. So, I actually reviewed this film with my Freddy series, but I did it as more of a looking at it from a Nightmare on Elm Street standpoint. Today I'm going to review it again, but I'm going to do it from a Jason Friday the 13th standpoint. And my reviews will be somewhat different because the movie is somewhat different for both characters, in my opinion. So yeah, Freddy versus Jason today is what we'll be taking a look at. I'll get into my review shortly, which will contain spoilers, but first I'll just kind of go through the setup and the premise of the movie. So, Freddy vs. Jason's a 2003 American slasher film directed by Ronnie Yu and written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. It's a crossover between the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th series, being the eighth installment of the former and the 11th in the latter, which is Friday the 13th, the 11th film. The film retroactively establishes the two series in a shared universe and pits their respective antagonists, Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, against each other after the former manipulates Jason into coming back to life and attacking the residents of Springwood to facilitate his own return. It is chronologically set after Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare from 1991. And for this franchise, it's set after Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. And it's the last film in each franchise before their respective reboots. So yeah, this movie takes place before Jason goes into space or Jason X, which of course makes sense because that movie takes place in the future, like 450 years in the future. They did that for a reason. But so yeah, this basically both guys are in hell at this point, and that's kind of where this movie picks up from. So it's after Jason Goes to Hell from 1993. So Freddy Krueger's now powerless in hell because the residents of Springwood have forgotten about him. He uses his remaining powers to resurrect Jason Voorhees. Freddy appears to Jason in the form of Jason's mother and manipulates him into killing the denizens of Springwood to create fear, allowing Freddy to regain his strength. Meanwhile, Laurie Campbell, who lives with her widowed father, has a sleepover with her friends Key and Gib. They are later joined by Trey, Gibb's boyfriend, and his friend Blake. Jason enters the house and murders Trey, and the police suspect Freddy. After a nightmare, Blake awakens to find his father killed by Jason, who then kills Blake himself. The police call it a murder suicide the following day, hoping to conceal Freddy's return from the rest of the town. So that's sort of the setup and the premise of this movie, sort of the beginning of it. The cast in this movie, we have Robert Englund, of course, as Freddy Krueger. Ken Kersinger plays Jason Voorhees. Monica Keena is Laurie Campbell, the final girl, if you will. Jason Ritter is Will Rawlins. Kelly Rowland is Kia Watterson. Chris Marquette is Charlie Linderman. Lachlan Monroe is Deputy Scott Stubbs. Catherine Isabel from the Ginger Snaps movies as Gibb Smith. And Brendan Fletcher is Mark Davis, who's actually probably my favorite character in this movie. Um, so yeah, I'll be looking. Like I said before, I'm going to be looking at this from a different standpoint than my review that you'll see with my July Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street series that I did. That was strictly from a Freddy standpoint. So I'm going to review this specifically from a Jason standpoint, and I think I actually. If I remember, I ranked it fairly decently for Freddy because this is more of a Freddy movie. Let's be honest about it. The fact that it was distributed by New Line Cinema, New Line, which is was the creator of the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street series. You can tell in this movie, and obviously they got the rights to Jason since 1993 when they did Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. So they did have the character of Jason for about 10 years, but clearly their allegiance was with Freddy still, and it shows in this movie. So I won't be rating this movie quite as high for the Friday the 13th series, just because I don't think it's a great Friday the 13th Jason movie. I shouldn't say that it's not a bad movie. So keep that in mind when I rate this. It's not that it's a bad movie. It's just that for a Jason Friday the 13th movie, I can't hold it up quite as high as some of the other movies so far in the series for the most part. So I'll go through my pros and cons with it though. Like I said, it is a well written and conceived film that combines these two horror characters. Where obviously Freddy uses Jason through a dream. Both of them are basically in hell at this point, and so um, Freddy uses Jason to for his own personal gain to muster fear among the town of Springwood. It's a really well directed film by Ronnie Yu. He had a vision for this movie. He made it work, and he admittedly wasn't a fan of either of these series before he did it, which I think actually kind of helps the movie, to be honest with you. Um, let's see. I'm just going to skip through some of my Freddy pros because we're not doing that one. Lots of there's a few Easter eggs and callbacks from both franchises. More, I would say, more Nightmare on Elm Street than Friday the 13th. The film has good cinematography. It looks good overall. I like that they used the theme music from both franchises, and they tried to remain consistent and loyal. That's the word I'm looking for, to both franchises as far as the lore goes. Um, the fight in the third act is pretty good and entertaining. They directed it in a way where you weren't quite sure how it was going to turn out or who was going to come on top. Uh, Pretty good kills, and this is where Jason gets more of the credit for this movie. I can talk about the kills because he does 99% of them. I think only Freddy only kills one person. Jason kills at least a dozen. Well, 5 to 10, I would say, in this movie that you see on screen. And there's pretty good blood and gore. Now some of it, well, I'll get into that. But Jason has some pretty good kills. I'm not going to say they're the best of the Friday the 13th series, but they're probably somewhere in the middle, I would say. So yeah, those are kind of my pros. Jason does do a lot of killing. Um, I like the look of Jason a little better than the last few movies. He doesn't have as much hair hanging off of him, which I thought was kind of weird. Um, Especially when he's a completely waterlogged head and Jason takes Manhattan and all of a sudden he's got like hair growing out of his head, and Jason goes to hell and even Jason X, which I know is in the future, but I didn't mind the look of Jason in this movie. I thought that was decent. And Ken Kersinger, I'm not going to rip him. He played Jason pretty well. I'd say he's a middle of the road Jason, not the worst, certainly not the best, which I'll get into with my cons here. There are going to be more cons when it comes to the reviewing this from the Friday the 13th standpoint. The biggest con, and I know I'm hanging on to this for 20 years after the fact, but Kane Hodder should have been Jason in this movie. I mean, it just would have. Just sitting here thinking about it, this movie would have meant so much more to me if it was Kane Hodder against Robert Englund and their respective characters, because those two actors obviously made the characters. I know other people played Jason and played him really well, in the case of Richard Brooker and Ted White specifically. But let's face it, at this point, I kind of feel like they used Kane Hodder for the first two movies that New Line distributed, and then they kind of like shoved them aside for some sort of directorial nonsense that they talked about. I think that was a huge mistake. I think Kane Hodder should have been Jason. I'll say that to my grave. It's nothing against Ken Kersinger. He's a big guy. He kind of fit the role, or he kind of fit the bill to a certain extent, although I would argue that he doesn't. It's not the Jason I wanted to see. He doesn't bring what Kane Hodder brings to it. So that takes this movie down a bit from a Friday the 13th standpoint. Some of the special effects, especially in the third act, are over the top. It's too much CGI in this movie, as I mentioned in my Nightmare on Elm Street review of it. The human characters, I don't care about any of them. Like I said, the only character I really like is Mark Davis, played by Brendan Fletcher. I thought he had some good was pretty funny in parts, and I just thought he was good. I liked that character. I didn't really like the final girl, Laurie Campbell. First of all, she's more of a final girl for Freddy than she is for Jason. She actually teams up with Jason, you might say, more than a. Well, you'll see when I do my ranking of the final girls for the Friday the 13th franchise. She's not going to rank very high. I'll tell you that now. And it's like I said, it's mostly because I view her more as a Freddy final girl, where she definitely takes on Freddy and tries to kill him a lot more than she does Jason. So I mean, why would you rank her high? I mean, and I just didn't like Laurie Campbell as a character. I think a lot of that's Monica Keena really didn't play her that well. Um, so that's that. It's a typical teen movie with lots of cliched characters and typical early 2000s cliche. Um, there's some knowledge conveniences and to move the story along, plot conveniences and contrivances. Um, and the other big thing is Jason's all of a sudden scared of water. Well, that's interesting considering that he basically was was dormant in water for like 3 movies, or at least at the end and the beginning, he would come out of 3 different movies. So if he's scared of water, he sure as hell didn't run out of it. So that was a bit of a. I know they had to do that because Freddy's supposedly afraid of fire and Jason water. They wanted that contrast, but that's where they kind of dropped the ball a little bit as far as being loyal to the Friday the 13th lore. Um, and we really don't get Freddy versus Jason until the end of the movie. I mean, we have to deal with a lot of these crap ass characters for most of the movie. So yeah, like I said, I think I rated it pretty decently for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, but for Friday the 13th, the 2 big things that stick out to me, it's this isn't Kane Hodder, and the whole being afraid of water, and just kind of the other things I mentioned. The fact that it's a Freddy film, let's be honest about it. And I'm reviewing the Friday the 13th franchise right now. So don't kill the messenger. But this is just my opinion. I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10, based on the Friday the 13th franchise. Like I said, not a badly made movie, but as far as the character of Jason and from a Friday the 13th standpoint, it doesn't hold up as well as the other movies. I have to be honest about that. So 6.5 out of 10. Go ahead and give me your thoughts down below in the comments as far as what you think of this movie from a Jason Friday the 13th standpoint. Like I said, I can appreciate it more from a Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street standpoint, but let me know what you think from a Jason standpoint. Um, Go ahead and please like this video and hit the little notification bell to see my future videos when they drop. Please subscribe to my channel to see future videos regarding this franchise for the rest of the month, as well as other standalone reviews and other horror videos that I'll be doing. So thanks for checking out this movie review, and have a great day. Bye.